So it is the week of World Day of Prayer. World Day of Prayer is going to be on Wednesday. And for me, it's really powerful because Rosh Hashanah begins this evening, which, as I said earlier, is the Jewish New Year. And the beginning of Rosh Hashanah brings in what's known as the days of awe. So there are 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the holiest of holy days. Please. Yep. Yep. This is my new thing, working with the handheld, you guys. my microphone doesn't like me a whole lot lately. So it is the holiest of holy days. And how fitting is it that in the midst of that sacred space, which is about, so Yom Kippur is about atonement, but we hold that in our understanding of atonement, not as meaning that there's something that we have to be forgiven for, but that we are working our way through our understanding of ourselves to be at one-ment, to understand the wholeness of who we are. So during these 10 days, we look back over the past year and we let go of what doesn't serve. And we allow ourselves to step into this new beginning from a place of oneness. And so these 10 days are incredibly powerful. And right in the midst of these 10 days, World Day of Prayer, Unity's World Day of Prayer is sitting. And it's 24 hours where we are being invited to anchor and to hold the world, which means that we're also being invited to hold ourselves in prayer, in that field of what is so unique to Unity. So if you're new to Unity and you're tuning in with us for the first time, one of the greatest gifts that Unity has given the world is affirmations. And all those affirmations that folks do out there in the world, we can thank Unity for that. And the gift of this very unique form of prayer called affirmative prayer. And what affirmative prayer does is it is allowing us to embrace the possible. That's what the process of stepping into affirmative prayer is all about. Because for most of us, whatever it is that we're engaging in the world, we step into it with this feeling of, yes, but all the reasons why we can't actually realize the thing that we want to realize. All the reasons why it really isn't going to be possible for us to turn climate crisis around. All the reasons why the women in Afghanistan should have no hope whatsoever. All those buts that step in as we're trying to anchor the truth. And what affirmative prayer offers us an opportunity to step into is yes and. Now, if any of you have ever taken an improv class, you have ever done anything where you're actually been invited to get up and play with people and throw together something that is going to become creative, it's literally a name of a game they teach in improv. Yes and. Because the human impulse is so intense to say yes, but. We want to say no again and again and again. And so you play this kooky game where people stand there and no matter what they say, even if they say, wow, you look really old, you have to respond, yes, and, right? There's no buts about it. It's yes, and. Let's go and climb that mountain. Yes, and. You can't say no. And it creates for creativity. It allows new impulses to get triggered. It allows us to move outside of fear and invites us to step into something new. So when I have worked with young actors, teaching them yes and, it has always amazed me how long it takes to break the yes but. How hard that muscle is that you just want to do what you want to do, not what the person that you're playing with has suggested you do. You want to do what you want to do. And what I want to invite all of us into as we sit with World Day of Prayer is this idea of yes and. Now, last week I was talking about the 4 pillars, the pillars that allow us to stay anchored and grounded in the truth of who we are so that we can actually practice the presence. And they were meditation, affirmative prayer, sacred sangha, and vision. And if you remember, and if you didn't watch last week, you can catch it on YouTube, but I talked about how vision is, particularly for me right now, the most challenging component of these pillars, because we're in such a state of upheaval, and we don't know what's coming, and we don't know what's next, and literally every day is what's going to happen today. And it's challenging sometimes to have vision in the midst of that. But the other 3, meditation, affirmative prayer, and sacred sangha, are what allow us to actually support the idea that a vision can arise. So vision is the possibility. So when I'm inviting you to embrace possibility, I am also simultaneously inviting you to step into a vision of something that you have never seen before, a vision that is completely new, because if I have anything to say about it, I don't need for us to reboot what was, because that wasn't working either. So can we create a new world, a new awareness that is grounded in faith, grounded in love, grounded in our capacity to see each other as love? That's the gift of the sacred sangha. So affirmative prayer is, hands down, as far as I'm concerned, the most powerful tool that we have to shift our consciousness and to show up differently in the world. That's the key thing. That affirmative prayer enables us to actually show up in the world in a different way. Not just in our head, not just in our heart, but actually in our actions as well. So Charles Fillmore has a very famous quote which if you're in Unity, you've heard this a lot, right? Affirmative prayer is the most highly accelerated mind action known. But we very often don't very often hear the next part of the quote, which to me is the most powerful. Human consciousness synchronizes with Christ mind. Just sit with that for a second. Human consciousness, all that part of you that gets caught up in the ego, that gets caught up in what it is that you want to have happen, that what you think it should be, synchronizing with Christ mind, with the realm of infinite potential. We are unstoppable when we are synchronized, when we are aligned. That is when we know wholeness. That is when we get to show up in the world in a way that actually, truly is making this a world that works for everyone, not for just some of us. So the invitation is to have a revelation of what is possible as you, as your life, as the divinity that you are. And affirmative prayer provides us with this beautiful process in which we can actually have a revelation of our wholeness, have a revelation of the truth of who we are, have a revelation that this world is not broken, because it is not broken. Have a revelation that will enable us to move forward with faith and hope and compassion and love, to move forward empowered in our divinity. So the affirmative, are we having still problems with my, okay. So the affirmative prayer process, I have been working with Linda Martello-Whitsitt, who, as Ken mentioned, is the vice president of Silent Unity. And she and I have been working for several years now to take Unity's affirmative prayer process, which is grounded in the language of the late 1800s, and to bring it into the 21st century. Right? Yeah. Can we get some applause for that, please? So this is what I'm going to be sharing with you right now, is what I'm calling, and Linda is calling, Affirmative Prayer for the 21st century. So it is still the same process for those of you who know the more traditional process. It's just we have updated the language to better allow us to be able to access this process in a way that makes more sense to a modern sensibility. So the first step in the process is opening, right? Opening to a new understanding, just being willing to contemplate that there's a new understanding. That step is so huge, because usually when we come to prayer, right, we're coming to prayer because things are not showing up the way we want, probably 80% of the time. The other 20% of the time, we're showing up in prayer of just pure and total gratitude, right, for the blessings that we have. And even then, guess what? There's even more blessings possible. So the first opening component of this process is literally to open to the idea that there is a new way for you to be and to hold whatever you are in the midst of experiencing. And from that place, we begin to anchor the truth that unity is built on, our prime principle, that there is only one power and one presence, and that it is all that there is, and it is everywhere present. So we recognize that. We recognize that God is. And for me, that's a really big thing, right? It's really big. God is wisdom. God is grace. God is faith. And any of the 12 powers come to mind. Understanding, right? Power. God is joy, right? Not the kind of joy that has an opposite. The joy that is eternal. The joy that is absolute. So we just recognize that in some way within ourselves. And from that place of sort of the bigness, the infinite allness that God is, the next step is that we get to integrate it with ourselves. And we get to remember the I am that we all are. So whatever was big and huge and out there, all of a sudden the invitation is to activate it right here. So in unity, the big words we use is that God is transcendent and God is also immanent. Simultaneously. And our little human brains just start short-circuiting around that idea. But that is the truth of what is happening. The center of all beingness is the center of my beingness. That is simultaneously true. And so in that next step, we go from the largeness of the divine to the immanence of the divine. Right here, I am. And from there, well, if I am, then what can I do? What can I actually do in time and in space? If I am the divine, what can I do? What can I have? What do I know? As the divinity that I am, not as the small personality that I am, but as the divinity that I am. And then the last step is that we just stand in appreciation and gratitude, not because our prayer is answered. We stand in gratitude and appreciation because I have been changed. My consciousness has been changed. That is what we stand in appreciation for. So this process, I like to think of it as a spiral. That when I come to prayer, I tend to come feeling closed off and small and limited and overwhelmed, and I don't know, what other words are there, you guys, for when we come to prayer, right? Depressed, sad, angry, right? Worried, anxious, all of those things, right? And even just saying all of those words, can you feel how it makes your body want to get smaller? That wants you to get tighter? And so from that place, which is at the very center of the spiral where you're beginning, you're invited to open. And that begins this journey of opening. And as you open, you can then recognize that God is. God actually is. I may have forgotten it. I may not be able to really know it, but God is. That is truth. And as we know that God is, and there is nothing outside of it, that means I'm not outside of it. So I am. And can you feel how you start to open up? And the spiral is opening up. And then we're in the place where from there we can realize the truth of how we can show up in the world. That is the power of affirmative prayer, that it takes an idea that lives in our hearts and in our minds and allows us to concretely manifest it in time and in space. And then from there, we're just floating in appreciation. And can you feel how much larger our world is? How much larger our understanding is? So you can really boil it down to three things, affirmative prayer, which is God is, I am, I can. Everybody say that with me. God is, I am, I can. Right? That's really the heart of it. Right? God is, I am, I can. So the way that might look is that God is wisdom. Therefore, I am wise, which means that I can choose well. Can you see how we've taken a divine understanding and now we have a way to live it in time and in space? If God is consciousness, that's what we believe in Unity, then I am awake and aware. How could I not be? If I am consciousness, then I am awake and aware. And if I am awake and aware, I can see the larger picture. I can see the things that I have missed before. If God is strength, then I am strong. And if I am strong, I can do what I need to do. Even if I don't feel like it, right? I can do what I need to do. If God is love, I am loving, and I can open my heart freely, even with the people who really annoy me. Right? Because that's when we pray for that, right? We pray for love and compassion when people are working our last nerve, right? If God is joy, then I can be joyful. And then that means that I can relax. I can have fun. I can laugh. If God is power, that means I am powerful. And so are you. And that means that we can change the world. That is the truth of what we know and believe. So the very heart of affirmative prayer is this movement from this big, immense, transcendent understanding of God to an awareness of the I am, which means that then I can show up in time and in space in a whole new way. God is, I am, I can. Let's say that one more time. God is, I am, I can. So that brings us to World Day of Prayer. Because when we stand in that power, and when we stand in the awareness of the truth of who we are, it means that that is available and accessible everywhere. Not just to me, because remember, there is only one power and one presence. So as I stand in my power and I am living into it in time and in space, the vibration of the truth of how I am showing up is up-leveling not just my life, but the entire world. And there is a tipping point. There is a point where as we, as this sacred Sangha, come together, as we say yes, particularly around these holy days, like these days of awe, these holy days like World Day of Prayer, where we are placing our intention, where we are placing our concentration, when we are placing our dedication to something that is larger than just my little world. when I purposefully and consciously open up, that is when the world changes. And that is the power of what I am inviting all of us into for this year's World Day of Prayer. The theme is All Is Well With My Soul. And I don't know about you, but this past year or so, I haven't always felt that all is well with my soul. But the truth of the truth of the truth, at the root of the root, at the heart of the heart, at the very essence of my being is that my soul, my beingness, truly all is well. It has never been hurt, harmed, or endangered. It is whole. It is love. So if I can access that, and this is a muscle that we're being invited to build. I always say to people, you want to build this muscle when things are kind of going okay in your life, right? Because as you build that muscle, then when things start to cascade, because life happens, right? Life is going to happen. But if we have this muscle that we've been cultivating, God is, I am, I can. If we can cultivate that awareness within ourselves, then we can navigate anything. We can navigate what is happening in the world right now, which I swear feels biblical. Fires and floods and right, and pestilence and war, and it's biblical. And we absolutely can navigate this, and we can do more than just navigate it passively. We can be an active force for shifting, for up-leveling. That's what we're being called to. Over and over and over again. We'll get called to it until we get it, you guys. Right? It's like we need to, and if you look back historically, we have up-leveled tremendously. You can look back at what has happened on this planet, and what is happening can be horrific, and there was a lot more horrific things that have happened. We are up-leveling. We are building a world of compassion. It feels long and it feels slow, but we are all an important component in that trajectory of transformation that is happening individually, but it is also happening collectively. And on World Day of Prayer, we get to remember that. So I love this. I think Dave actually sent this to me. So this is why we pray for each other. Right? This is why we pray for each other. This is why we hold each other. Because if the bottom is falling out for me, it isn't necessarily falling out for you. And when the bottom feels to be falling out for you, it isn't necessarily falling out for me. And I will say this too, it's a lot easier to pray with other people around the things that are challenging for them. Because I can see your wholeness just shining forth like radiant points of light. It sometimes is a lot harder for me to see my own wholeness, right? I got things blocking me. And so I come to you and I say, will you sing this song, Had a Revelation? And in that moment, I am reflected back in the beauty of what those voices did. That's what we get to do for each other. That's why we pray and we hold each other in consciousness. And it is from this, the meditation, the affirmative prayer, the sacred Sangha, that the vision arises. And the vision, as we know, is of equality. The vision that we know in unity is of justice. The vision that we know and hold is of peace. Truly.